Hi, everyone. So I'm Tanya. I'm going to introduce myself and then bring on the next panelists. And each one of them are going to introduce themselves, and they have to answer one of two questions. So one of the questions is, tell me about 3 cybersecurity trends that you think are going to happen in 2023 or that you're already seeing. Or they can answer, specifically talk about one of the topics from this panel. And so there's supply chain, etc. So I will go through those. But for now, I'm Tanya Jenka. I'm also known as 𝗕cie𝗺𝗵𝗇𝗵𝗵. And basically, I'm a giant nerd on the internet that talks about how to secure software a lot. I have an online academy called 𝗕cie𝗺𝗵𝗇𝗵𝗵𝗇𝗵 community and a podcast, and I'm just obsessed with those things essentially. And I'm very grateful to having Raj and the entire Purple Book community inviting me to this. But let's talk to our speakers because that's more exciting. So Chitra and Mohit, who wants to go first?
I can go first. I'll start with a brief introduction about myself and pass the baton to Mohit to give his introduction. I'm Chitra Dharmarajan. I lead security engineering initiatives for Customer Identity Cloud Business Group of Okta. I've been working in Silicon Valley for about 2 decades now. I started my career as a software developer. I was working in security software for firewalls and routers and switches, and slowly evolved into leading FIPS 142 and 𝗕Ccie𝗺𝗹𝗲 certification for routers, switches, and firewalls. And this helped me evolve organically as a security leader. In the last 2 decades, I had a great privilege to work for startups, mid-sized companies, and big corporations. Now enjoying my journey as a security leader for Okta. Mohit?
Hey, thanks, Chitra. Hey, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity, and good morning, good afternoon, evening to everyone out there. So I'm Mohit Kalra, and I'm the VP of Product Security at a company called 𝗕𝗺𝗃𝗄. Again, my journey starts as a software engineer, moved up the ladder in the software engineering world, and then kind of moved to product security. So since then, I've been securing applications, the cloud, and everything in between, in order to make sure that the offering that our companies bring to the customer are secure. So that's my journey in brief. Back to you, Jenka. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Both of you are actually doing such a good job of staying on time. Okay, so the 2 questions are either, what are the trends that you see coming or have already started seeing in 2023? Or you can speak to one of the topics that I put into the chat. So for everyone listening, it's securing the supply chain, addressing cybersecurity capacity and workforce needs, securing applications at the speed of innovation, securing critical infrastructure, cyber board book, so C-suite board engagement, and then identity security in an emerging threat landscape. Chitra, did you want to decide if you want to talk about trends or one of those topics?
I'm going to pick the trend. I actually didn't know Mohit is joining me in this panel. We both are product security people, so we are going to be just upvoting each other's trend observations, I believe. The top trend that comes to my mind is efficacy in vulnerability management. This seems to be pretty much the need of the hour. This is going to be a compelling and inevitable priority for businesses. We all know that software supply chain has emerged as a very lucrative attack vector for threat actors. By just exploiting one weakness or one vulnerability, there is a great opportunity for a malicious actor to steal a sensitive data or plant a malware or even take control of systems belonging to the downstream consumers. We have seen this happen in the case of Log4j and SolarWinds and so on. So prioritized vulnerability management is pretty much as in everybody's mind. As we are doing our planning for this year, I was looking at some numbers. I want to share some data with this audience. I was looking at CVE.R. In year 2022, there has been about 18,828 CVEs released. That is 51 CVEs a day. It is a no-brainer. It is just impossible to patch everything. Out of this big number of 18,828, 105 of them had made it to the 𝗕Ccie KEV database. KEV is known exploited vulnerability catalog maintained by 𝗕Ccie. And I was talking to a couple of industry leaders and some back of the envelope calculations and estimates. We think about like roughly about 6 to 8% of these CVEs are riskier for the organization. So the probability of exploit is higher for about 6%. So patching 18,828 is, we don't have that level of cyber resource available at any well-funded security organizations in the planet, I would say. So this is where the topic, like, how do we prioritize vulnerability management? How do we drive efficacy in vulnerability management? So it goes without saying that we are all thinking about very much risk-based approach. Where is the real risk? Today, we are evaluating more about operational impact, business impact, severity. But I'm also seeing a trend that industry leaders are thinking about reachability analysis. It's not just about the CVEs released on the open source that your software uses, but it is also about how exactly that CVE impacts your usage of that open source. So I do see a lot of trend about tools evolving with a higher fidelity. They are touching on the reachability analysis and providing high fidelity findings, which enables companies to make a prioritized vulnerability management. That's something which I see as a top evolving trend for 2023. Mohit, do you want to share your thoughts?
Nice.
I wholeheartedly agree with everything you said there. I do want to kind of chime in from my perspective, but before I go there, I do want to say that, some things are changing, but many things haven't changed in security yet. The cyber attacks will continue to come to your weakest spot, no matter what you do. You harden one spot, the spot's going to change. So the attack surface might change, but the weakest spot will always be targeted. Also, the fundamentals of security haven't really changed. You may want to look at the landscape you're securing, the new technologies that come in, but the fundamentals that are still intact, and they will continue to be the same throughout the coming year as well. And as always, security teams will have less bandwidth and more work to do. They cannot give up on the old work that they were doing, and new responsibilities will add it on top of them. So with that in mind, we do have to prioritize, and prioritization is key to security. So one of the trends I do want to talk about, so I have two trends in mind, and one of the trends I want to talk about is identity and access management. So identity is the new currency of access these days. The network perimeters are being broken. The work from home situation has created a paradigm of being able to access stuff anywhere. But I do want to kind of go into the deeper details that, when you look at identity, you're not just looking at a workforce accessing its corporate network from home, but it also involves the customer accessing your product. And sometimes your product accessing other services which add value to your product itself. So identities could be just not passwords, but API keys and, fundamental credentials that will give access to a lot more that you would not get otherwise. So the attack on identities is picking up, if there are being ways to bypass MFA, either through social engineering, or even if you have done the entire multi-factor authentication with your username and password, attackers will come and attack your endpoint or your laptops to take all the session tokens that you've already acquired. So the thing that we have to understand is that we are very much used to vulnerability, detecting vulnerabilities and detecting misconfiguration. But what we also need to do is start threat modeling our identities to see how overly permissive they are, to see how perpetual they are, and if possible, giving that just-in-time identity access to systems that are sensitive, and sometimes even bringing back the network perimeter for some of the identities that should be pinned down to a few networks rather than available through the entire internet. So in my opinion, when we do threat modeling, when we threat model our products, we have to look at our identity system, not just from the perspective of an IT world accessing the IT land from the home network, but across the entire product. And in addition to that, we also need to threat model by assuming breach of identities and knowing what our incident plan would be in case identities are leaked out there. So with the trends we've seen in 2022 around identities kind of being targeted because that's the easiest and weakest spot in sometimes. It is very important for security professionals for us to be looking at them very deeply. Just as a, just to wrap up, my second trend I had in mind was supply chain security. I'll keep it brief. I'm not going to go into the depths of it, but essentially we've been very used to, focusing on software we write, software we're responsible for, deployments we're responsible for. And supply chain security essentially saying that when you are dependent on third-party systems or libraries or images, you have to kind of have a good inventory of where do you have the third-party dependencies. What do you do if something bad were to happen or something was to be told, like say if Log4j happened, how are you going to react to it? So your ability and agility to react to third-party ecosystems. And thirdly, even though you have full trust enabled into the third party, there are incidents or vulnerabilities that can be discovered that could lead to that erosion of trust. And the first responsibility you have to your customers is to reestablish this trust by having the ability to know where to fix, what to fix, and how quickly to fix that. So that is an integral part of a supply chain security. So don't focus on just one set of supply chain, but think more holistically on what makes your ecosystem, especially coming from third parties, and what security controls do you have in place in order to ensure that you can, you have a secure ecosystem in the first place, but you also have the agility to react if that ecosystem had, some problems around security going down the line. So with that, Tanya, I'm going to hand it back to you, or Chitra, if there was something more you wanted to add.
Yeah, I just want to add a note to your observation on identity attack trends. Okta releases the State of Secure Identity report every year, and there is a lot of data about credential stuffing attacks, fraudulent registration attacks, attacks against MFA for high-value targets. It's a great read. It's definitely a good read, a lot of data points which have helped leaders drive conversations between board and other fellow leaders about the zero trust strategy. That's something which I want to share to this audience. Back to you, Tanya.
Awesome. I liked a lot of what both of you said, and having two product security people compare answers and people who work in identity, I guess. Do you know what I mean? That was really helpful. I also liked, Mohit, how you said we need to reestablish distrust, because that is a thing that all of us security folks talk about a lot. There's this implied trust because humans we wouldn't survive if we didn't trust each other sometimes, right? And so when we design things, we can't help but do it that way. And both of you had such good points. Okay, thank you both very much. I'm going to ask both of you to leave, and thank you both for your great input, and ask David, Cass, and John, he'll introduce himself and say his name better than I did.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Chitra. Right.
Yeah, thank you, Purple Book Club, for this awesome opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.